So welcome, and I hope you enjoyed the film, our opening night of the film of Najwa Najjar's film Between Heaven and Earth. We are so thrilled to have Najwa with us here, with us tonight to speak about the film. So I'm ready and excited to jump right into it. So welcome, Najwa, and Mabruk on the Canadian premiere of the film.
Hi, thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm so thrilled that this is opening in Canada, and hello to everyone that I can just virtually say greet. So I hope you enjoyed the movie.
And Yarit, we could have been in the theater together to enjoy the experience together. But here we are online virtually, but with audiences that we haven't reached before across Canada. So that is something exciting. So I'm just wondering, has it been really challenging to release a film during the pandemic? And if so, what kind of challenges have you experienced?
We finished the movie, it was November, 13th of November. We hand carried the film, the DCP, to Cairo Film Festival, where we had our world opening, and it was in the Opera House, and it was absolutely stupendous. That was on November 27th. And we won the Best Screenplay Award, the very prestigious Najib Mahfouz Award, and we were thrilled. And we thought, okay, and we were booked festivals back to back for months. And then came the pandemic. And it was literally, it was one cancellation, one postponement after another. And it's a bit tough because you have a new movie and you don't know how long this pandemic is going to last. And then when it starts again, is it considered now an old movie? Is it not? People look at the date. They don't really sometimes look at the topicality and the importance of a certain topic. So, but luckily, when it started off again, we tried very hard not to do the online because, as you know, cinema is not just an entertainment. It is much more than that. It's us being with you. It's us talking to audiences. But I don't think that we're going to get to Canada or the US. So we made a decision, and thank you for supporting this, to do this in Canada. And we do have a few physical festivals. Our first one was in Jordan. It was a drive-in, which was fabulous. And there's a few more now, and people are trying very hard to go back to this, to physical festivals.
Talking about, challenges, your film is a road trip movie, and, unlike other, famous road trip movies like, say Thelma and Louise, where you have wide open, borders and scenery, Palestine is a very different situation. And, was it difficult to shoot a road trip movie in Palestine with all the, complicated, barriers to travel that Palestinians face within the country?
Okay. I'm a bit of a storyteller, so if my answers become too long, you have to stop me. But the way I have to tell you how it started as a road movie as well. We were in Haifa, and there was these two falafel shops, and we went to one, and one speaks, and he says, I was taking pictures. He says, so what do you do? And I said, I'm a filmmaker. He says, my son is driving me crazy. And I said, okay, why? And he said, he got a scholarship from Goldsmith in London, and he's refusing to go because he is one of the guardians of Ikrit. Now, big shame on me. I didn't know where Ikrit exactly lied. I went on Google Maps, couldn't find it. Then we found this wonderful app by a friend of ours called iNeklit. So we kind of figured it's near the Lebanese border. It's about 3 kilometers away from the Lebanese border, where there was several Palestinian villages that were erased in 1948. And we took off from Ramallah, and we went through the northern borders with the checkpoints, one of the most miserable checkpoints. It took us 10 hours to find Ikrit. I couldn't find it because everything has been erased. At the end, my partner, he just looked up and he goes, I think there's a church up there. And we found this road that completely closed off. And we went in kind of up, and then this huge space and this church and a graveyard down below. And these 3 beautiful, 2 men, 2 women came up and they said, marhaba, ahlan. نعمل أهلا وسهلا يعني هيك بلشنا. We started to talk to each other. And they found out what we were doing. They were so welcoming. And they told us the story of Ikrit and how they became present absentee owners of a land of which they won the only court case. There was 2 court cases in 1951. But they won. But they have to stay on this land or else the land will be confiscated.
Wow.
So this was the start of the story of Ikrit. And as we were going back, it took us 5 hours to get back. So it became a road trip. So our whole discovery of Ikrit became, and along the way, we started discovering the Palestine. We live in the West Bank and even in Jerusalem, which we have been divorced from, a forced divorce. It's not a chosen divorce. We are not allowed, or with great difficulty, to be able to see each other. Luckily, we have Jerusalem ID cards, we can travel. And we have some very good friends in Nazareth. And I started to discover, this was my discovery, of what in many times were, forgotten Palestinians. And it's a bit shameful for me as long as I've lived in Palestine. But it became this journey of Palestinians that live in 1948 who, against their will, had to take passports, who were part of the Communist Party, who lived with, who actually worked with Jews also in the Communist Party, the Syrians in the occupied Golan Heights, their stories, their language, their food, the way they act. And it became, it just became by itself a road movie and about a couple that love each other but can't live together, which in some ways are not allowed to live together. Yeah. So in some ways that became the logo of the movie. It's a love story about divorce.
Yeah.
So, but we did have many difficulties in shooting.
You didn't have difficulty shootings?
Whoa!
Oh!
We had so many. It was
I was going to say, I was like, really? That's a first.
The 24-day shoot, we started in June. So we did the West Bank first. We did Jericho, Taibat, Ramallah, and Ramallah. Okay, so we tried to do as much shooting as possible there, but it is a road movie. Right. But those places where we're allowed to put the camera outside the car, we had freedom, we could do whatever we wanted. So it made life, of course, way, way easier for us. Okay. Then we shot in, this is all in 24 days. We shot in 8 more locations. So we went to Yafa, to Haifa, Jisr al-Azra, which is the last Palestinian village on the Mediterranean, fighting so hard to remain Palestinian. They've offered them millions and millions of shekels to buy them out, and they're refusing. We went to the last spot before you enter Lebanon, Jish, of course, Ikrit. In Ras al-Naura, which is on the Lebanese border, we were told that we have to get a permission from the military officers. So our production manager, she said, look, I've got it. And I said, okay, great. You got it. You got it. A day before the shooting, we were going there and she said, we're only allowed an hour. And I said, an hour is good. We arrived at the location and then they said, sorry, you're not allowed to shoot. But we had arrived and nobody's going to tell us where to shoot. So the cameraman was wonderful. He undid the camera, put it in his backpack. We went very small crew and we went in, we shot and we left. Mm-hmm. So we weren't giving any permissions to shoot inside. We also shot in Nazareth and I think I've covered more or less all the locations, and Yafa. Mm-hmm. But we had 4 people that were arrested when we were shooting.
Right.
And no permissions that were given. It was a lot of things we had to just kind of shoot on the fly. But we had one of the most amazing crews in the world. I mean, everybody came together with, and I know this is going to sound with so much love that it's just like, okay, we got this. Don't worry about this. So it was really good. It was really good.
That's despite. I feel like there's a movie behind the movie, in the making of the movie. Definitely. But I mean, you really do see it in the film that, sometimes, Palestinian filmmakers are forced to shoot one in a different location to have it represent the location they can't access. And, and that's because there is no other choice. But, you really do feel that you see the different environments and climates of Palestine as you travel through this, through the different terrains and different locations. And you really do see how different and unique each place is. And it's really one of the most beautiful pieces of the movie, that landscape that you cover.
But that's important for us. I mean, the location scouting usually takes me around, this one took me around 8 months.
Okay.
Because it's really important, especially for like Palestinians and other Arabs who live outside the area who've never been allowed. This is a chance for them to see their country. I mean, it is a chance to know that despite what has been depicted on TVs of these, justice and the way that our lives are showed, the way the land is showed, the way our homes are shown, it's not our lives. Mm-hmm. And that's really important to set the record straight, mm-hmm. for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, one of the other, you touched upon it with Ikrit, but, one of the things I found really fascinating about the story you tell in the movie is how you wove in, 3 historical events that we really have not heard much about or seen represented much. And, there's, the Ikrit, and then, there is, the Mossad assassination campaign in Beirut in the 1970s, and the stolen babies of Arab Jews who emigrated to Israel. And, I found like how you wove those pieces into that story, I found was really interesting because they aren't covered. But, they also really interesting in the sense that they related to what other Indigenous people in Canada also had the stories of the residential schools and the 60 scoop where Indigenous babies were also taken away from Indigenous peoples on our land. So I was just curious, what prompted you to, you talked about how you got with, you discovered the story of Ikrit, but these other 2 pieces, what prompted you to incorporate those narratives into this story, which, as you mentioned, is a love story about a divorce,
That's the main trend. But when I was building up the characters in my story, a lot of what we live and our lives and our friends and what they go through is of great interest to me. And mm-hmm. there's a lot of martyrs whose children we know. And you see the scars. And as someone who lives also in Palestine, loving under occupation is tough. You come and you live with so much injustice. You come to your home. You've got to take care of your kids. You've got to cook. You've got to be loving, and your husband's got to be loving. And you have to create this environment for your kids. And this is when you're kind of normal, so to say, Yeah. If somebody has his father killed, has his mother killed, has to leave his home, has lived the most, how deep are those scars and how does it affect relationships? So that for me is always a very interesting thing, is that when I'm building up a relationship about a love story, I need to know these characters. I need to know who they are. So for me, and getting to know the people who lived, and not to do a documentary about the forgotten Palestinians inside 48, about the Syrians inside the occupied. So you create these characters which embody what the people that I know. And I mean, the Communist Party and their effect on especially people in Nazareth is tremendous. And I thought of how much despair they went through. Nobody knows that offices were closed, that they were full. And all of this comes from, and it's going to be repeated now 3 times, is that Israel was created as a white settler colonial state. Is that when Jews and Muslims and Christians worked together within the Communist Party, they were a big threat to this white colonialist state. Mm-hmm. So there was never really an issue between Jews and Muslims and Christians. I mean, this was never an issue. So for me, being part of the Communist Party and the suffering that they faced because of this was very, very interesting in terms of character development. If you take the stories of the Mossad, this was also something else that came up, that everybody who has something to say, whether they are intellectuals, whether they're revolutionaries, whoever they are targets, because that narrative is not allowed out. Mm-hmm. There's a continuation of that in many, many different ways, as we all know. And the final one was the stolen Arab Jewish babies. I mean, that for me was like, this really hit me, because it's a story that's been kind of Israel's biggest secret. Mm-hmm. And it only started coming out a few years ago. And I thought, nobody has dared to touch this. How could they not? And in some ways, without the exact similarities, but the Arabs, regardless of where they come, even if they're Jewish, they face the same kind of racism that Palestinians face, because we are considered inferior to the white settler colonial state. They were sprayed with DDT, they were kidnapped, they were given to Ashkenazi families so that they grow up as European thinking. And I thought that incredible hatred, it's towards Arabs. And I thought, whoa, this is what it's kind of all about. And I think it's really important, especially when it comes to, we always have to tell everybody, we have a national struggle, we don't have a religious struggle. Mm-hmm. And this to me says, this shows it. We don't have a religious struggle. It's not against any Jew. Never. I mean, that's not the point. The point is that it is something that is incredible racism against anybody who is not a Zionist. Mm-hmm. And that's an important thing that I felt needed to be woven into the fabric of the story. I mean, and it took a lot of work. So thank you for appreciating it. So, yeah.
No, we definitely appreciated it. It's because it's so complex, and it's like, there was a great balance in terms of telling these stories through the character development without overcomplicating the story. Like, it just was really seamlessly woven in, but you kind of left you wanting to know more. Like, it was we were discovering the secrets with the character, and I think that's what really. We were part of that road trip. We wanted to find out just like the characters wanted to find out. And it was a revelation when they had, and, definitely kept us glued, all the way to the end to find out what is going to happen. Yeah. And that leads me to, like, discussion of the characters, and, your landscapes were diverse, but so were your characters. The two main characters, I think in particular, I mean, fabulous acting. It's funny, again, sort of coming from a legal background, tend to pick sides. It's a very adversarial, system. And I think the first instinct you had is trying to figure out who's at fault. Am I siding with the husband, or am I siding with the wife? And it was really interesting. I think our audience couldn't side with either of them. Which is, I think, probably the hardest thing. You couldn't side with either one of them. You felt for both characters equally. There was no right or wrong. It wasn't black and white. It was, they did feel haunted by the past. You had to wonder what exactly they were divorcing. Was it each other? Was it their histories? Was it the politics? Was it their, the context, the landscape they were on? So can you talk a little bit how you got to, I mean, you touched about the Mossad backstory, but, those conversations I felt many couples have had, at least, maybe in a Palestinian context, in a modern context. So you can talk a little bit, just how you got that chemistry there with those conversations that had, and how did you not make a good guy, bad guy dichotomy in this divorce? It still really do keep the love, but also the what I thought was really, what really kind of got me at the beginning was seeing Tamer in a pool in Palestine. And I think after 13 years of programming, that was the first pool scene I've ever seen as a Palestinian home with a pool. And that really kind of, shook me off the, like my, I guess my bias or my base of oh, this is what I expect when I see a Palestinian couple. Like right away, I was like, oh, no, no, this is not a typical Palestinian, or maybe this is not the typical depiction, but that house, that pool, the Mercedes, setting this couple in a context, in a lifestyle that we don't normally see, also was part of that character development. So if you can sort of let us know your process there.
I mean, there's so many stories in Palestine, and sometimes I feel that there are some programmers who may prefer to see a Palestinian that they are more familiar with, and in the background that is sometimes a little bit pathetic, that needs their help, that needs their support, that is not very, not to say that my colleagues make these movies, no. But sometimes, there's so many stories that, you can cover many different things in Palestine. And sometimes I feel that the stories that tend to reflect more of what is seen on TV is preferred because it doesn't shake you up. And it's not, and I was even told by some European producers that pool scene is, you're going to, and they told me this, you're going to turn off a lot of European festivals. And I said, why? And they said, well, because not that it's not just expected, is that suddenly you've created a middle class or of an upper middle class. And I said, it's a small pool, it's a small house, simple furniture. We are allowed to live, and we have that right to live. And it's not, you said, no, you're showing like you're part of the leadership. And I said, you've got to stop also about that. There's some, in every leaderships in the world, there's some corruption, and there's a lot of people that work very hard for their country. So don't go there with me. So for me, it was, and it is a battle, and it's still a battle. There are different stories to be told. And Palestine was mostly before 48. Of course, we're a very big peasant society, but which is wonderful because it works the land and it's part of the land and growing the fruits and growing the vegetables and building. But we also had a very, very educated, wealthy, entrepreneurial that traveled, that wrote books. I mean, my own grandfather, I could use that as an example, who wrote books, spoke 6 languages. My grandmother, I mean, this exists. So do not remove that narrative. And I refuse to remove it for my kind of cinema, what I want to do. And for the life around me, I can't pretend to do something that I'm not very, very familiar with. And so like I said, a lot of these characters are built on the research that I've done, on friends that I've known. Starting off with the pool it wasn't just about the pool, it was about a man drowning in his own sadness and his own misery. I mean, that was really what I was thinking visually in terms of it. And it's a small, cute pool, and why not, And why not break some stereotypes and some images of people who are not getting divorced because the man beats the wife. They're not getting divorced because the woman had an affair.
Right.
They're getting divorced because, like everywhere in the world, sometimes couple just stop happening.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a journey which forces them to be together and to find some things about each other. And I just thought that, I think I'm a little bit tired, especially in Arab cinema, which, can show a very much an abusive side to the relationships, which does exist. I'm not saying that it doesn't exist in our society. But for me, there was another story here that needed to be told. And I wanted to tell it in a different way. And I wanted that context of something that to me as well. And if it happens to be familiar to the West and to the East or wherever it finds, so be it. I mean, it is the story about a land. It's a story about a couple. It's a story about the injustices that we face every day that have had huge impacts on our lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's, you know, it's true. Like it is something that I've heard other filmmakers, talk about, people want a certain type of Palestine. And, if you don't fit that mold, or you don't present that image, you might not get the funding, you might not get programmed, you might, that there is that kind of programming tension there. You did touch upon it, in your response. Is this thing that we are seeing more of, that demand that Palestinian filmmakers produce a type of Palestine that is, that fits a Western or funders or an institution's appetite, and if you don't do that, there's a risk of not being programmed or picked up? Or is it very much kind of a hit or miss type thing, depending who you're dealing with?
I think it's a hit. I think it's, I mean, I don't like to be, because I've always fought the funds, and I've never ever kind of abided by what they've wanted. And I've been funded. I've been lucky that I have, but I've also been refused a lot. Mm-hmm. And also with festivals. I mean, it is that way. And I mean, people have shown like, oh my God, how are you not accepted here, or that, whatever. Right. But it is subjective. And I think there are sometimes, I think now there's more of a change, because we're having younger, more dynamic, a lot of women dominated film programmers who kind of get it, who are more worldly, who are more traveled. So I think, and more men also, that we are starting to be able to meet with, who are heading festivals, who are programmers, who we can talk to and say, look, dude, this is not the way it is. Let's talk about another thing, and there's an opportunity now for more. Before, it used to be a little bit more sterile, a little bit older generations kind of set in their ways. And but I am noticing a change now in terms of programming, but I think it is a struggle. Mm-hmm. And I think Palestinian filmmakers are kind of resilient. They kind of want to do their story. Yeah. But maybe there is, I don't know what happens with other filmmakers, but I think that it's worth the fight to try and always, because the struggle is to be able to speak our narrative. It is a fight about narrative. Mm-hmm. Our narrative has been stolen from us. Right. I think what is crucial is that we always remain truthful, really, to ourselves. And even if it's more difficult, and I say that because maybe now I don't care as much, but it is very important to remain very truthful and to find different ways. And if they don't accept you in this festival, or if you don't get funding here, you know what? It's okay. There's another way. And there are so many festivals, and there's so many different ways to make a buzz and to get your movie out there. So, so I think, but there is a change. And I think there is resilience from Palestinian filmmakers and Arab filmmakers in general, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we definitely see it in the broad scope of films and topics we get every year in programming, and that definitely has increased exponentially with the new filmmakers, the emerging filmmakers who are coming onto the scene. The stories are so varied. We're seeing different sides of Palestine, other than sort of the terrorist versus victim narrative that we only usually get in Western media, and it's been really inspiring to watch. And I know it's filmmakers like yourself and the other sort of more seasoned Palestinian filmmakers who are working with this younger generation, and pulling them through, because we don't have a national cinema that in an institutionalized sort of context that Palestinian filmmakers are making these films in. It's opened it, to allow people to experiment and push the boundaries, and it's been an honor and pleasure to kind of see these works come through and to be able to program them. So it definitely is amazing.
There are some institutions that are doing some great work in Bethlehem.
Absolutely.
There's schools that are coming up everywhere, workshops that are being given, and the connection between Palestinians in 1948 and in the West Bank and in Gaza. I mean, that's really important for us. And so, I mean, there is now becoming a little bit more institutionalized kind of thing, an industry to try and create something that is for all Palestinians, also in diaspora. I mean, we're not separate, we're all together in this, so.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And one thing, we talked a lot about, the visual aspect of your film and the storyline, but one thing that I thought was also, really, intriguing was music played a really big role in the story. And, some of my favorite bands, some of my favorite singers, whether they be Palestinian or not Palestinian, kind of creep into that storyline, or they become part of that environment. Can you talk a little bit about the use of music and the musicians you selected to feature as part of the story?
I like to always involve the whole Arab world. I tried, like in Eyes of a Thief, we brought Khalid Abu Nagan, Saad Massi. This movie, there was no chance to bring in any Arab actor, any Arab singer, nothing. So I figured, okay, we can use another way to bring in the Arab world. So I thought it would be, this is a road movie, and what do you do when you're on the road? You put the music, drive, and this is the mood and the creation of it.
Yeah.
A lot of these singers are friends of mine, and the music process also was like, literally, it was a year of listening, of talking, of Saad calling me and saying, look, Najwa, I have a new song, why don't you take a listen to it? And it was just like, brilliant, it fits right in. Natasha Tlass, who was incredibly generous and kind, that just fit the beginning of the movie. So I tried to take singers from Palestine, from 48, Golan, from the Arab world. So we have Tunis, Yuma, Saad Massi from Algeria, Natasha Tlass, who is Egyptian British. We have Orange Blossom, who are also Egyptian. And we have Palestinians from 48. Oh my goodness, this is really bad. We have Tout Art from Tout Art, and we have this wonderful boy band who are now living in Italy, but they are from the Golan Heights, and Ghazal from Nazareth. So I tried as much as possible. Oh, and Sahar, who sings Mace's Dow song, Bikaffi Aad, the last song, and she's Egyptian. She does a cover for her. Amazing. So we tried to get as much as possible of singers from all over the Arab world. And our music composer is Tamer Karawan, who's a very famous, and we worked together on our second movie, music composer who did the music for the film, the interludes, the music for the driving. So we tried to create that sense of the Arab world. And Dalida's in the kitchen, and we have an Iraqi singer, and we have a very famous also Iraqi singer that was in the band. So I tried to have everyone fit wherever they come. So that was to create that mood of the Arab world. And I wanted something a little bit also uplifting. I wanted this journey to be a journey of discovery. It's a discovery of even these musicians. For me, not all of them are well known. They're all alternative kind of music, and they have these. They sing. They're so soulful, and some of them are huge. Of course, Natasha Tlass, Saad Massi, Tanya, Lebanese singers. They're huge, but I wanted the other alternatives also to come in and to create that mood.
Yeah. I mean, we love the music, and you're right. It did sort of create an uplifting mood with some heavy topics, but the movie never felt heavy. And I think that you're right. Like, the music is responsible for a lot of that kind of uplifting beat. And it was fun to be like recognizing people and sort of like, oh yeah, that's so-and-so, and wonder, oh, there's an Iraqi singer in a Palestinian film, and it was really enjoyable to kind of hear that along with the Palestinian narrative, which in many ways the Palestinian narrative is also an Arab narrative. And as Palestinians, with the Nakba, the rest of the Arab world was cut off from Palestine too, and there is that longing for and many Arabs outside of Palestine miss they are also nostalgic for that time where we used to be able to travel to each other's capitals and experience each other's culture and music and academia. So it really was a fitting piece to sort of the story of Palestine, and it was also a fun part of it too.
I mean, Palestine is kind of, I mean, the injustice that's there, and despite everything that's happening now politically, the injustice that's happening in Palestine is the core of any just solution. I mean, that's it. We are the core. This is it. So it was kind of in the kind of subliminal kind of way is the Arab world and the heart of the Arab world. Yeah. So.
So tell us, what's next for you? We're still in pandemic, but I'm sure your ideas and creativity in projects are still percolating in your head, in your office, around you. Are you working on new projects? Are you going to be focusing on the film for the next little while? How is the pandemic affecting the creative process and the creation of new works at this time?
Writers, we spend most of our time writing. So the pandemic was kind of like, okay, great. Everybody's home, but we can hang out and take walks and enjoy some time. And then it's perfect time to sit and write. So actually at the first part, when there's a lot of lockdowns, I tried to use that in a very beneficial way. And I had a script that I've been wanting to write for a while. And it's something that's going to be done. It's got very much a Palestinian theme, and it's set in the past, and it's a musical, and it's set in Alexandria.
Oh, wow.
So that's been kind of like my dream project for the past 5 years. So I kind of got down on that one and looked at possible funders. We're already talking to some actors and starting to move that along. And there's another project that we started to discuss between trying to get 5 experienced Palestinian filmmakers together and to do shorts about the incredible absurdity of our lives in Palestine.
Wow.
And it's just a way that a pandemic that has pulled everyone apart. We're trying as women filmmakers to come back together and to work together, have writers' room, inspire each other, trying to do that. But so I mean, those were the 2 things that I've been working on, and now it seems that my Flowers on the Nile is kind of kicking off. Okay. So yeah, so we'll see how that one goes, so we'll see. We do have to finish the sales for the movie, getting it out there, distribution. And we have a festival coordinator who's doing a lot of work. Our co-producers are helping out. So it's now festivals and then trying to sell the movie to as many countries. We have been selected for the European Academy Awards.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that's amazing.
So selected, we're not nominated yet. So
that's amazing.
So that's really good. And then things will come up with, there's the Golden Globes, the Oscars. Yeah, we'll see how things go. And hopefully we'll be able to come to the US and at some point start to open theatrically there as well. And to Canada. I mean, I can't believe you're going to be screening my movie and I'm not there. But anyway.
I know. It's tough. It definitely is tough because, one thing programming tends to be very isolating. And even though we have a programming team, we watch the films and then we sort of have the discussions, but you really don't appreciate a movie unless you're in the theater with the audience's reactions. And that reaction very much differs, from an audience maybe at the Toronto International Film Festival, that you notice a huge difference between that reaction and the reaction at TPFF. And, last year we watched a film and I didn't realize it was a comedy until I saw it with a Palestinian audience because, at TIFF, everyone thought it was a serious drama. And, everyone, at TPFF, the audience was laughing in hysterics. And I was like, oh, this is a comedy, you know. It's a different flavor, and you know, it has been a challenging year, and we definitely missed that audience reaction and the ability to you know sit down and meet with our you know filmmakers and celebrate their work with the audience, you know, with them in the audience
But you
together.
know what would be wonderful, and this is now directed at the audience, is
Oh,
if
preach,
they
preach.
enjoyed the movie or if they didn't. I mean, it would be great to go to our IMDb page, write your reviews, so at least I can know how you feel. You know, make your comments, good, bad, the ugly, on my page, Facebook page, or IMDb. Write your reviews, rate the movie. I mean, it would at least allow me to know how you felt about the movie. So.
Yeah, that's a great advice. And you can also do it on the TPFF's, you know, if you do it on the TPFF's pages or Twitter account or Facebook, Instagram, we'll make sure we'll let Najwa know you know, get that feedback there as well. But you're also on social media platforms as well, so people can also find you there and tag you and sort of comment on the film and their reactions and their, you know, relations to the film and what, you know, the experiences they drew out of it, because I do think there's so many layers of experiences in this film, and from, you know, relating to that couple could have been any one of our friends, it could have been even any one of us, no matter where we are, to our family stories, and you know, it's all there. We saw all that in the film, and yeah, it's you can't watch this film and not have a reaction. We can definitely.
And I would love to know the reaction because we work so hard.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be sure to remind people to share those reactions, because yeah, we would like to know too, because we definitely missed that piece of the festival. I think it's that disconnect, you know, being disconnected from our audience face to face has been a tough challenge in the programming process. But you know, we really greatly thank you for spending this time with us to talk about the film. I know your schedule is busy. It's a busy time, and there's a lot of festival demands for the film. So the fact that you were able to carve out some time for us, really appreciated. And you know, we are so excited about the future projects. So I really hope you keep us in mind when they're ready to go, and you know, we're excited to see those as well. And I hope the process, you know, goes smoothly in their, you know, from paper to screen. You know, we hope that process goes smoothly, because we look forward to seeing those as well. And you know, and having you finally in Toronto, we'd love to see you. We'd love to see you with us in person in the future, hopefully, when it's safe, and when we're all able to travel and meet again in person.
So thank you. I mean, I think what you've done is tremendous. You've at least kept cinema somewhat alive, and despite our reservations about online, I mean, this is now the best solution. So thank you for this. And yeah, I wish I could see some of the movies that you're screening. So best of luck, and hopefully we'll meet soon.
Yeah, I hope so too. And again, thank you again for, you know, taking a chance on us and allowing us to have the Canadian premiere of this film. It is a huge honor to have the film with us, to have the premiere. It's an honor and a responsibility we take very seriously, and we want to promote the success of this film. And it's been a pleasure to be able to open the festival with this incredible film. So for, you know, our viewers, you know, spread the word. If your friends and family weren't able to watch the film at the opening, at the launch time, the film is going to be available for another 48 hours on demand. So there is still time to spread the word and you know, prod all your friends and family across Canada to tune in and check out this film, and then follow up with some great comments for Najwa. And again, you know, please be sure to check out the other incredible films that we have lined up, the incredible performances, and some of the other discussions we have for the rest of the festival. So all that information is available at TPFF.ca. So we look forward to seeing you, Najwa, soon, and our audience for the rest of the week. So thank you very much.
Thank you.